It was a jump scare, but it was a good jump scare. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I chopped my hair off. Also, I'm getting over a cold right now, so if I sound a little weird or I have low energy, that is why. So I'm sorry about that. But today's video, we're going to be going over all the books I read in November. I read 6 books this month. They are right here. I'm sure you can tell what this one is. We're getting very close to the end of the year. I think I'm going to post like 2 more videos before I post my December wrap up. Since we are close to the end of the year, I want to do my top 10 reads of 2023. And then maybe if there's like a kind of a tag going around, I'll do one of those. Or maybe I'll make it my own. I don't know. We'll see. Let's just get into all the books I read this month. And I made these little graphics to kind of keep on the screen just because I feel like I'm not the best at explaining things, and I wanted to include like the themes and the tropes of each book in one spot on the screen. So yeah, just to help with like the summary and stuff, and if you see tropes or themes you like from the book, then maybe you'll be more inclined to read them. But yeah, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I absolutely loved this book. I actually read this with my friend, but she didn't love it as much as me, but I really did love this book. I think it's one of my top romance books that I read this year. A big reason why I loved this book was because the banter, it was so good. It was unmatched. So this is basically about Ari and Josh, and they keep running into each other over the span of I think 6 years. And the first time they meet, it's kind of like a funny encounter. They're both having sex with the same woman, and she's roommates with the woman. So that's how they first meet, and they get a really bad impression of each other, and they run into each other like 4 more times throughout the span of a couple years. All the encounters they have with each other are kind of weird but memorable. They finally decide maybe we should be friends, so they decide to like go out and have a drink together because they're both struggling in their lives. They're both going through pretty bad breakups. One of the tropes in here is enemies to friends to lovers, which I don't know, sometimes I like friends to lovers, sometimes I don't. I really enjoy enemies to lovers, so I feel like this was a good like middle ground for me. Enemies to friends to lovers. This book is inspired by When Harry Met Sally, which I've never seen, and honestly I've heard really bad things about that movie, so I don't plan on watching it, but I really loved this book. It was just so good, almost like a slow burn because they were friends at first, but they ended up just not being able to deny like the chemistry they had between one another. Like I said, they're both going through a breakup, so they're really struggling as individuals, and mainly like she doesn't want to get into a relationship because she's just not doing well and she doesn't feel like she's ready for one. So some of the tropes we have are enemies to friends to lovers. Other themes are I thought the characters were like really realistic and they were flawed, which made it more relatable, and like I don't know, I was able to enjoy the characters more because of that. Also, I would say this is like Grumpy Sunshine. He's pretty grumpy. I wouldn't say she's Sunshine, but she's way more like outgoing and like bubbly than him. So it's kind of like opposite to track. And then there's like a lot of personal growth and complexity of friendships within this book, which I really enjoyed. Again, it just made the characters seem more realistic, and I was just really like invested in them and their story. So yes, I absolutely love this book. I give this 4.5 stars. I highly recommend this. The next book I read in November is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This is like the companion novel to The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, and I really loved that book. I can't remember the rating I gave it, but I liked it a lot. So I honestly didn't realize when I bought this that it was the companion novel to that. Anyways, this follows a girl named Felicity, but she goes by Fizzy. Ugh, I hated that. I hate that. Sorry. She's basically, she's a romance author. She's just like she doesn't have a good love life. This guy named Connor Price, he directs like shows. He directs mainly like documentary shows and stuff, but they put him on this project where he needs to do like a reality TV show, and he comes up with the idea to cast Fizzy, the romance author, as like the main girl in the reality TV show, and basically she is gonna date all these people. Kind of a weird, I did not like this book. I really didn't like the female character. She was very annoying, and I felt like the connection was super physical, and the characters for me didn't have any depth to them. I found myself getting really annoyed by the female character. I almost DNF'd this book. And there are a few Christina Lauren books I like, but I feel like some of their books are just a miss for me. I don't know. Oh, so she gets to know Connor before she starts filming on the show with him because, I don't know, they decide to hang out a couple times. And she's like immediately attracted to him. They both like fall for each other, but they don't really admit to it. It was a very like physical connection, so I was like kind of turned off by that. Then like I did not like the like aspect of the reality TV show. I thought it was cringe. Like, it wasn't written well, in my opinion. Like, seeing her date these, it was basically just her dating these people and him watching and him like being mad about it. Yeah, so I would not recommend this book. Some of the tropes though, if you like these tropes, I guess you could give it a shot. But yeah, it just wasn't my cup of tea. So some of the tropes and themes were workplace romance. Like I said, they're on a reality TV show together. He's the director or the producer, and she's the main person on the show. And then I felt like it was friends with benefits, maybe not. She was like really pushing, like, oh, this can just be like a physical connection, and she was like being delusional even though she like liked him. And then forced proximity because they are filming together and like working together, and then like spending time outside of work together. And then one of us is famous tropes, I guess, because she's a famous author. But like I said, if you like those tropes and themes and it sounds like something you would like, maybe check it out. But I just didn't really enjoy it. The True Love Experiment, I gave two stars. Next book I read in November was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, and I'm sure a lot of you have already read this. It came out and I read it immediately. There's so much to like say, but because I don't want to like spoil. Basically, this is the second book to Fourth Wing, if you didn't know. And this is a fantasy series that takes place at like a war college where you're either a scribe or a writer, and if you're a writer, a dragon chooses you. You have a dragon that you're connected to, and the main character, Violet, is basically the most well-known writer. She's the most powerful writer, even though she's like really new to it all. And there's a huge subplot of romance in this series, which is why I initially was intrigued to read it, because I don't typically go for fantasy books. Yeah, it basically follows her and her romantic connection, who is Xaden. So basically his dragon is the mate of Violet's dragon, so all of these two dragons and these two people, they're all intertwined. And basically, to put it short, there were these myths about certain creatures and stuff. Turns out they're real, and they're at war with these creatures, and they're kind of going behind the college and all of the higher ups because they were hiding this from them. So they're going behind their back and trying to figure out what to do. This is very high stakes. Like there's cliffhangers. It leaves off on a cliffhanger. Obviously, this is high stakes because they're fighting a lot, and it's fantasy, war, dragons, betrayals. This is found family because this is the second book in the series, so I'm not gonna lie, like the first like probably 200 pages I was mad confused. I don't know if anyone can like say the same, but I read Fourth Wing like a couple months ago, so it wasn't really fresh in my mind. So like getting back into Iron Flame, there were like a lot of people's names that I forgot, and also they call the people, like some of the people, they call them by their last name. I forget who people are and like whose dragon is whose, so it can be like kind of overwhelming if you're not used to like fantasy. But I really did enjoy this book. I was eating it up, and I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed. I know there were mixed opinions about this book, but I did like it. I'm going to continue to read the series. Like I said, found family, I can't say much, but I'm just like shook at how this book ended, and I really want to see how she's going to continue the storyline, because there was a huge cliffhanger and like a huge revelation at the end of this book. All I have to say is that if you have never read fantasy before and you want to get into it and you like romance, I do recommend this. I gave Iron Flame 4 stars. I think I gave Fourth Wing 4.5. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm sorry that was like hard to explain, because it's the second book in a series, so I can only say so much without giving like spoilers. But I did really enjoy Iron Flame. The next book I read in November was Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I totally didn't realize this came out when I went to go buy Iron Flame at Target. It was buy two get one free, so I was like, obviously I'm gonna buy two to get one free. And I saw this and I'm like, what is that? That looks new. So yeah, this is the first book in Lauren Asher's new series called the Lakefront Billionaire series. So if you've read her other series, she has a different series called the Dreamland Billionaire series, which I really liked. I didn't really like the last book in that series, but overall I liked that series. So this is like kind of similar vibes, but this is in a small town and it follows different people. Obviously it's a completely different world, but which I love this so much. Some of the characters are like the main men and like the wives in the Dreamland Billionaire series was like they were in this book. Like little snippets of them were in this book, and they're kind of like intertwined with these people, which I loved. It was a jump scare, but it was a good jump scare. Let me explain what this is about. This is basically about a man named Julian, and he is a billionaire. He basically, I think he works in like real estate and like investing in homes and stuff like that. And then the female character in this, her name is Delilah. She has her own show. Do you know those shows like those renovation house shows? I can't think of what they're called. My mom watches so many of them. But anyways, she has one of her shows like that. She redesigns homes and stuff. So she's a pretty well-known designer. This is about her going back to her hometown, which Julian still lives in the town. They were like childhood friends or childhood rivals, and they went to college together, and the last time they saw each other was so Delilah returns back to her hometown in Lake Wisteria to kind of get away from her life in San Francisco as a designer, because she's going through a breakup. She was engaged to this man who's actually friends with Julian in college. They were all friends together, Julian, Delilah, and the guy she was married to. I think his name was Oliver. Engaged to. I think his name was Oliver. Anyways, they had a show together, like a design show together. They were engaged, and now they're split, and she wants to get away from everything and kind of just like have some time to herself. So she goes home to where her family lives and where she grew up in Lake Wisteria, and she runs into Julian, and she hasn't seen him since college, and they kind of left off on a weird note. They had like a kiss or something like that, and they never really spoke about it again and never really saw each other again. I guess you could say this is second chance, small town, and obviously it's a billionaire romance because he is a billionaire. I read somewhere that it's childhood rivals, and I can't really remember that. Like, I don't remember that being a thing, but I guess they were like rivals in school. I don't know. I don't think that's like a big piece of the story, so maybe just like disregard that. But those are the tropes and themes. For me, I really didn't like love this book, which I was kind of disappointed because I do enjoy her writing, but I don't know, I just really didn't love this book. It was hard for me to connect to the characters, and it all fell kind of flat for me. I guess like these aren't really my favorite tropes, and I didn't think they were done well. Again, I really loved how she featured like the brothers from the Dreamland Billionaire series in this series. That really makes me want to continue the series because I have a feeling they're going to be brought up more in the following books in this series. But yeah, so this is basically about them like rekindling and kind of like talking about their past and trying to figure out where it all went wrong, and them just deciding that they really do have a connection and they want to explore it. So yeah, I couldn't connect to the characters, so it wasn't my favorite. It was an okay book. I gave it 3 stars. Like I said, I do think I'm going to continue the series. 5th book I read in November is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a reread for me. I said before that I wanted to reread this before the year was over, and I did. Okay, so it's about this Hollywood icon. This is fiction, but it feels very real. Think of like Madonna. Okay, so anyways, it's about this Hollywood movie icon, Evelyn Hugo. So you're following the perspective of this girl named Monique, and she works for a publication, and her publication gets an email from someone that works for Evelyn saying, we want you to do a story for Evelyn, but the only way we'll do the story with your magazine is if you get Monique, the writer that works for them, to do the story with her. Obviously, they really want this story. She's a very well-known actress and she hasn't done an interview in years, so they really want to get this interview with her. So the magazine sends Monique to do the story, and Monique soon finds out that Evelyn doesn't want to do a story with the magazine. She wants Monique to write her memoir for her, but not for the magazine, just she wants her to put it under her name once she passes away. And obviously Monique is very confused because she's like, why the hell would you choose me? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so you're basically following the present time where she's interviewing her, and then you're getting like snippets of her life and her going through fame and all the relationships she went through, all the struggles she faced, just like everything. This book is like really unlike any book I've ever read. That's why I really love Taylor Jenkins Reid, because her books are just so unique and so well done. Some of the tropes and themes in this book are rise to fame, love and relationships, there's love triangles, there's like arranged marriages. This is like a historical fiction because it follows her throughout her whole career. Like, she was like a big star, I think, in like the 50s and 60s, so it follows her throughout her whole life. The root of this really is about Evelyn's like relationships and the people she loved in her life, and how she kind of found the right person, but it was the wrong time. And I cannot say enough good things about this book. It's so good. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it is fiction, but there's a huge like romance factor in this book, so if you're kind of like skeptical into getting into just like contemporary fiction, I do still recommend this, because if you like romance, you would like this. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Like I said, it's a reread for me. I can't remember what I gave it the first time. Probably 5 stars, but 5-star book, no flaws, so good. There's like a huge like plot twist or revelation that you find out, which was really interesting. While you're reading it, even Monique's like point of view, she's like trying to figure out why Evelyn chose her to write the memoir, and you're like trying to figure it out in your head as you're reading it. But yeah, you do find out at the end. It's so good. I highly recommend this book. The final book I read in November is Great and Precious Things by Rebecca Yarros. Second Rebecca Yarros book I've read this month, and I think this is my 5th book I've ever read by her. All of the other books I've read by her I've really enjoyed. This follows a boy named Camden. He's been in the military for like 10 years, I think, since he was 18. He's 28 now. Big point of this story is that he's in the military, and so is his little brother named Sullivan, and they were both on a mission together. They were both on the same mission, but he didn't know. And in this mission, his brother ended up passing away, and Camden basically blames himself for his little brother's death. And the last time he was home was when they had his funeral for him. Camden decides to return to his hometown, even though he always said he wouldn't, because a lot of people blame him for his brother's death, and he especially blames himself. So he thinks he's never going to return home again, but he does end up returning to his home, his small town, because his dad is suffering from Alzheimer's and basically leaves him a voicemail saying, I need you, blah blah blah. So he returns home, and like nothing happens in this book. I feel like literally nothing happens, and it was so random. He returns home, he's like having issues with his father and his older brother, who basically has like all the control over the father. So his father wants a DNR and the older brother won't allow it. So that's like a huge part of the book. Another big part of the book is the romance, which is between him and this girl named Willow. They've known each other their whole life, and it's a forbidden love because she dated the little brother that passed away, Sullivan. A lot of this book was literally just them going back and forth being like, we can't be together. Well, mainly him being like, we can't be together because you were with my dead little brother. Like, that's like a huge part of it, which like annoyed me. So annoying. I felt like there was no progression between the relationship. It was just weird. I thought it was really weird that like she basically like loved Camden all along, and like always have wanted to be with him, which I thought was weird. So she's like, we can be together, blah blah blah. I did not like it. Weird. It was weird. I did not like it. I'm literally just repeating myself, but basically it's forbidden love and military romance, even though he's not in the military during this book, but it is a huge part of him because it, you know, it was his life, and like his brother passing away in the military is like a very big part of the trauma he has. So yeah, I did not like this book. It didn't make sense to me, and it felt very repetitive and very predictable, and I thought the romance was kind of weird. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this other than I couldn't connect to the characters, and it felt like the storyline was like all over the place, which I feel like is weird for Rebecca Yarros, because the other 4 books I've read by her, I've given 4 or 4.5 stars, and this was, I gave it 2.5, but like that's being generous. I want to give it like a 1.5 or a 2. So I really don't recommend this book, but if these tropes sound like tropes you like, maybe give it a shot. But I was really disappointed. But you know what? It's okay. So that is the last book I read in November. Sorry if that explanation or like summary was all over the place, because I don't know. That book was just like, I was pushing through to get through that book. Like I was almost like skimming towards the end because I was like so done with it. It was not for me. So I'm sorry for the bad explanation and summary, but those are all the books I read in November. 6 books. I'm proud of myself. I am very close to my goal for the year, but I will get into that in my next video when I talk about my favorite reads of 2023. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to post a couple more videos in the month of December, so stay tuned for those. I guess that's it. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.